Good morning, everybody. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got Gas, the morning edition. And today we're going to talk about things happening overseas. Now, I'm a fan of sports cars, as many of you already know, and I've owned a number of them. Currently, I don't have any British sports cars in my garage, but over the years, I have had a number of them. Jaguars, Austin Healey's, I've had them. But what I've had that I've liked the most was my MGs. Yes, Morris Garage, as it was started out back in the 1920s, but it changed names. It was part of Morris Garage, which was a repair facility, and William Morris owned it. Now, they would take Morris's, which Morris was a brand, and they would modify them, or Oxfords, and make them into sporty cars. Not sports cars, but sport cars, or sporty cars. Now, later on, the name MG for Morris Garage got stuck on the cars, and they became their own brand. Now, the Morris Garages, or the MG cars, were fun. They were sports cars. They were lightweight, although they had small engines to start with. They did go up to 3 liters in size, although we'll talk about the MGs later on, the later MGs. They made great handling sports cars. They were very good at racing, and, well, my concern with them has to be with the introduction of the British invasion coming into the United States after World War II. Now, there were a number of sports car companies in Britain at the time. They survived, and they started to restructure and build new, exciting sports cars. Now, I say exciting because there was nothing on this continent that replicated or came close to what a sports car really was. Now, the closest thing we had to it in the early 50s, and we're not talking about the Kaiser Darrins or the early Corvettes, but they were British sports cars. Now, the MGTD came in, the MGTCs came in. British, well, American soldiers assigned to Britain brought these cars back with them. And once they started doing that, the market started to expand. People started seeing these cars. Now, they weren't high horsepower cars by any means. My little Austin Healey Sprites, I know, not an MG, but part of the organization, using the same engine as the MG Midgets. Came out before the Midget, though. A whole 48 horsepower. Now, that may not seem like much. Well, heck, it doesn't seem like much. But it was fun, and you could have some good runs with that. Stacy Bertram saying she had a 72 MGB. Now, I had 2 MGBs over my lifetime. Was looking for a third. Didn't get that far. But, hey, there's still time. The MG engines were BMC, or part of British Motor Corporation. Now, in a turn of events, Morris sold his interest in MG, and they became part of British Motor Corp, BMC, which ended up becoming part of Morris. Well, it went from Morris Motors Limited to the Austin Motor Company. They merged, and it became the British Motor Corporation, BMC. Now, several MG models were no longer then rebadged or re-engineered vehicles. They became their own sports cars. Now, BMC merged with Jaguar cars in 1966. Okay. And in December, that became the British Motor Holdings Company, or BMH. Then they merged with Leland Motor Corporation in 1968 to form British Leland Motor Corporation. Under British Leland, MG was nothing more than a marquee, which, you know what? The cars still got built. And in 72, the MG Car Company Limited ceased to exist. Now, Stacy says hers was bright orange with chrome bumpers, fun car, super light, easy to work on, lots of parts available, and you got to work on it often because it was an MG. I know Fiat's got that reputation, but MGs did it as well. Hi, Stephen. My cousin Stephen Jarvis tuning in. Troy Glenn, good morning to you as well. All right, so the MGs were fun cars. TC, TD, the MGA. That became the really stylish MG. Now it had integrated fenders, a separate pancake hood that did not lift off the car, it just merely opened. Now you had a car that was more modern. It kind of resembled a small Jaguar. It had the same flowing lines. 1500cc engine to start with. Now later on, they came out with a twin cam. Now this was an exciting engine for MG. It produced more horsepower. It was far more technically advanced, and it would brake quite as easily and twice as quickly as well. So the twin cam did not stay in production very long, but the MGA had a roadster and a coupe version, and I've always been enamored with that car. It was the last, though, MG that had a body sitting on a frame. In 1962, they introduced the MGB, a unibody car. This was far more stylish. It was larger. It was wider. It was far more comfortable. And I'll tell you what, of all the sports cars I've owned, it was the most solid and the most fun to drive. Now, it didn't have the horsepower and the grunt of the Triumphs I had. It definitely had no power in comparison to the Jaguars. But it was a fun, solid, good car. Easy to work on, as Stacy has told us, and I did work on it. The carburetors were simple, SU carburetors. There's almost no moving parts on this thing, except for the piston inside the bell, and you have a throttle linkage. There's not much there. I mean, it's a butterfly. That's it. And it raises and lowers the piston by vacuum. Very simple cars. Good morning, Kim. How you doing? You made it. Sam is going to be on to this evening in Evening Gas. Sam Fiorani is going to be joining us tonight, so definitely you want to join us, but I'm getting off topic right now. But the MGB was probably the best-selling, most prolific MG sports car around. Now, originally, they came out with an 1800cc four-cylinder engine. This engine was stout. It was reliable. It was solid. It was lacking in horsepower, and it always was. Now, initially, they came out with dual SU carburetors. Because of emission standards that came in later, they went down to a single SU carburetor, choked it with a catalytic converter, raised the car up, added these big rubber baby buggy bumpers, and the car became sluggish, even worse. It still was a solid car. Now, I've seen late model MGs with the rubber bumpers where they've lowered the cars down. They've made them look proper, not like a 4x4 raised up. And yes, Sam, we can talk MGs tonight. You are an MG enthusiast too. Good morning, Jessica from Sweden. How are you this morning? Glad you're here. All right, so the MGB started going away, but what is my favorite and what MG would I like to have right now? The car I'd like to get. It's on my wish list. It's on my bucket list. And you never know with me what's going to happen, is an MGB GT V8. Yes, V8. They used the basic Rover V8, which was unlicensed or purchased from Buick. It was the aluminum V8, 215 cubic inches. Now, Rover made a number of changes over the years, and this engine became a very, very reliable piece of equipment. And in its configuration in an MGB GT with a 5-speed manual transmission instead of the 4-speed with overdrive, this car weighed only 90 pounds. Well, it weighed just about 90 pounds more than the 4-cylinder. Nothing when you considered it had double the horsepower, triple the torque almost. This was an exciting sports car. Now, that engine was also shared with the TR8, the Rover TC series V8s, and the Rover Range Rovers. It was there. It was the motor of choice there. Now, that was not the only big motored car MG came out with. They tried a 6-cylinder. The same 6-cylinder that was in the Austin Healey, I believe. The problem was it was big, bulky, and heavy. And the MGC had a big bulge in the hood to clear this 6-cylinder engine. It had good straight line performance, but lacked the turning ability because of all that lump of iron over the front wheels. It was still a desirable car today, or it is still a desirable car today because of its uniqueness. The MGC, the MGB, great little cars. And I'd like to have another one someday. Anyone out there listening to this? Trade you my Corvette for an MGB GT. Mm-hmm. Okay, now that we got that out of the way. But the MG was the start of the British invasion here in the United States with their sports cars. They were affordable, they were light, they were fun. Now, they did lack in typical American, equipment. They had heaters. The heater would keep itself warm, that's about it. They not always had room for a radio, but Americans did put radios in them. There was never a factory air conditioning in an MGTD, TC, MGA, or early MGB. Now, I had a friend that had an MGB that had air conditioning. Now, Sam is saying, let's see what we got here. Austin Healey engine, just smaller displacement. Thank you. Now, Sam Fiorini is going to be on the show tonight. You want an MGB RV8? Yeah, I agree with you. MGB V8. They are super. Alan TR8, they're getting pricey now. People have finally realized that this was not that bad a car, but we'll do a story about the Triumphs on another night or day. But the MGB V8, that is a beautifully balanced car with the aluminum V8, a 5-speed transmission. The fuel mileage was pretty close to what the 4-cylinder was. It was a darn good option. Unfortunately, the MG and Rover organization was sold to a Chinese conglomerate. And although they're still produced in the United Kingdom, they are a Japanese-owned or Chinese-owned company. Now, that's not a bad thing in actuality because it's kept them alive. The MG no longer comes into the United States. The last model that did was the MGBs. But is there a possibility to come back? There have been MGB sports cars in the United Kingdom. Whether or not this Chinese conglomerate will expand MG and bring them back into the United States is anyone's guess. Hey, look, Fiat came back. Who knows? MGs, they're fun. I love the cars. I love the styling. They're very solid. And Stacy's saying the heater controls were so wonky. Yeah, just spun around. Yeah, they weren't really the best. Carl Abbott says, if you remember, talk to Paul Eggeman. Yes, I remember Paul. Carl Abbott, who's watching us right now, was also a past associate when I worked for Isuzu, and Paul Eggeman was also one of our guys there, and he was an MG guy as well. Stacy saying hers came with the overdrive switch on the steering wheel, but he never added the overdrive to it. Oh, interesting. Overdrive on those 4-speed. I had my MG BGT had overdrive, and it was during the era when we had the 55 mile an hour speed limit. Well, at 55 miles an hour, that car would deliver 27 to 28 miles per gallon. At 65 miles an hour, the previous speed limit, and we ended up going back to it, I got 36 miles per gallon because that car would just get better. All right, Sam saying SAIC bought MG just for the name and recognition so they could go global. Well, the U.S. market is definitely a long-term possibility, but don't expect sports cars, possibly crossovers. Again, they're looking at the market. And what is selling right now, and it's not sports cars, guys. That's why you see more crossover and SUV vehicles being built. Good morning, Sue Geisen. How's it going down there in Palm Desert? All right, so the MG, it's not lost. It's still out there. But I tell you what, it is one fun sports car, and they are still reasonably priced. You can get an MG for far less than you can an equivalent Triumph. Well, definitely less than an equivalent Jaguar. And they are fun cars to work on. And Moss Motors in Santa Barbara, Goleta area here in Southern California makes or offers many parts for these cars, including complete replacement body shells. Now, these were unibody vehicles, and they did tend to rust in our East Coast areas here in the States. And you can get a brand new, fresh steel body from the heritage aspect of this organization. And, just buy an old clapped out MG, pull the parts off, put it in, you've got yourself a brand new MG. All right, I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got gas. Don't forget, this evening, we've got evening gas. You get gas at night. Yes, and Sam Fiorini is going to be part of that show tonight. It's going to be live on Zoom, and you can be part of the studio audience. And the studio is your home. You don't have to leave. You don't have to go anywhere. You can be part of the discussion. You can be on camera. All you got to do is go to my page, check it out. If you saw this, go to the previous posts before this. The link to get onto the Zoom video tonight, and you can be a part of it, an active part of it. Just like you're posting messages now, you can actually talk to Sam, to Randy, myself. Who knows? Anna Octane may join in. Joe Walla may come in. And Bruce Barker. We may have the whole crew tonight. You never know. But join us tonight. Gas. The evening edition on Zoom. Check us out. The link is on my page. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got gas. The morning edition and the evening edition brought to you by Service Tech Equipment Company. When you need that equipment for your shop to work on your car, Service Tech's the one to call. Mention my name, 10% off on their new battery pulsar. Check it out. Service Tech and gas. It always goes together. You guys have a great day. I'll see you this evening, 6 p.m. We'll open up the channel at about 5:45 if you want to get in early and listen to some of our unrecorded chatter. Sometimes that's better than the show. Let me tell you, we thought about taking the outtakes from the chatter and putting them on the show and just making an outtake video. You never know. All right, Randy Kerdoon and myself, definitely going to be there tonight. We'll see you with Sam tonight on Gas, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Just go to the link on Zoom, and I'll let you in. Have a great day. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got gas, the morning edition. Take care, folks.